Oh, sorry, something's not happening. Hang on, bear with me.
I had a glass of wine and poured another. Told the bad boy come right over. Left both doors open wide. He said you best be armed, I'm coming inside. I grabbed my pew and some Merlot. Called my husband, said here we go. Message detectives on my phone. The bad guys coming, I'm not alone. They're chasing me down the road, doing 140 in my Mercedes load. Call 911, but they're too slow. Gotta reach the cops before they know. 6 police cars on my face. Ski mask dude in a Honda Chase. I'll race them all with my V8 while calling Ralph. Don't make me wait. He said slow down. I said no way. These hillbillies want me today. Pulled up to the station gate. The cops just stared and made me wait. They're chasing me down the road, doing 140 in my Mercedes load. Called 911, but they're so slow. Gotta reach the cops before they know. Met detectives at Tim Hortons, played the tape of all his warnings. Mad Dog said you did just right, while 9 more crates come out at night. Husband told him I'm not crazy, sent the cops home being lazy. Tomorrow getting faster wheels for when more villains chase my steel. They're chasing me down the road, doing 140 Mercedes load. Called 911, but they're too slow. Gotta reach the cops before they know.
Welcome in, everyone. It's good to see people coming in. Welcome in Janice, Deborah, Nonnie, Daisy May, Ernestine, Grover, Corbin, Shirkers. Good to see everyone coming in. I'll show you comments on stage now. Just thought I'd start with something a little bit more upbeat because I've been looking at all the welcoming vibes. I've been looking at all the tributes for Parker, which I'm just going to go. I'm going to show you some of them. I'm not going to add too much commentary because I still get incredibly, I still get overwhelmed and heartbroken by little Parker. So just wanted to share some of the photos of the tributes and stuff that are happening, which I just thought was so adorable. Definitely in a lot of people's hearts. Welcome in, Terry. Good to see you here. I noticed in some of the photos people had put like sensory toys there for him, and you know, a lot of autism awareness stuff, which is such a there's got to be some positive things come out of this, and I think the level of autism awareness that's come from this, I think Parker's done more for autism awareness than anybody else has done in the entire last year. I think definitely a lot of people are suddenly gaining an understanding of what the life is like, what like is life for children and adults who have autism. Welcome in, Terry. Thank you for the jewels, much appreciated. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who've learned a lot about autism since Parker went missing. Anyway, I'm just going to let this run through for a minute and then move on with the live stream. I should probably add, I tried very quickly just to do a small logo at the top of my screen with the headphones and the love heart for Parker. It's not a brilliant effort. I'll have a play around after my live stream and see if I can come up with one that might stand out a bit more that I can just pop on my screen for the next week. There was a memorial for Layla. I haven't got the images or anything to share for that for now. But the whole town turned out for Layla. This is the little Australian girl that was killed a few weeks ago here. They lined the street. Whoops, I should have muted that because hopefully that's not too much to get a copyright claim. Me too. The things that are coming out in terms of failures, lack of supports, the failures of the actual home, the home that he was staying at, the day home. Just far, far too many failures. There's actually a case that Bonza found yesterday that I will be talking about in a separate live stream, or probably separate video, I'm not sure. It's an Australian case, and I'm guessing it's been swept under the rug because it was basically a family of 4, 2 parents, 2 children, and they were living with their children had autism, profound autism. And this was, I think this was at the start of the year. And they had been battling with all these agencies trying to get support, trying to get funding on the NDIS, which is the funding here in Australia for people with disabilities. And apparently they'd just been constantly being rejected. And basically the whole one of the parents or both of the parents decided to end the entire family. And yet it somehow got hidden in the media. We didn't even know about it. So there was an Australian family at the beginning of this year who were just so overwhelmed by the lack of support in the system that the parents decided the only way out was to basically end the entire family. And they'd put all the planning into it. They'd left like a detailed letter about finances and stuff like that, and a detailed letter explaining the failures and stuff like that. And I think, how does society actually reach that point? How do we reach a point where a family is so overwhelmed, where they're just given so little support that seems like the only option? The system's broken. The system's really broken. Welcome in, Teresa. Welcome in, Hugging Demons. Now, I'm putting this up too. That's the thing. The failures of the day home have been very much downplayed. I think a lot of the failures in Parker's case have been downplayed, and I think you're right. I think after the families had time to have the funeral, have had time to at least have a little bit of healing time, I think we are going to hear some major things about the failings in this case. I was hoping that Charlotte would be. I might have it in my email. Apparently, the culvert that he got into didn't have any bars over it, for starters. So let me see if I can find this email. Okay. The day home was a government-run facility for profoundly disabled children. Now, right there, profoundly disabled children. Why was a group home for profoundly disabled children set up in such a way that an autistic boy could just walk out the door and they don't realise for half an hour that he's gone? It was underfunded and understaffed because of the GOA cuts to disability funding. And again, so many failings there, so many failings. Parker's parents had been repeatedly applying for funding for a one-on-one aid for him, and they kept denying the applications. The last denial came just 3 days before Parker went missing. His parents have every right to a major lawsuit here, and I hope to goodness that there is a lawyer out there who is prepared to jump in pro bono and help this family. The Alberta government made several cuts to the disabled. We have lots. A few BC of the government. Oh, you lost your daughter, Daisy, mate. I'm so sorry for that. This is not right. It's not right. Okay. Where was I? The culvert was on land maintained by GOA. GOA, is that like the government? They maintained Deerfoot Trail. It was drainage for the roadway. It had no grill covering the opening. So, major failings. GOA, Government of Alberta, right. Yeah. This, on one hand, it puts the spotlight on people of Calgary and how amazing they are. But I tell you what, right now the whole world is having a close look at the government of Alberta. It's buffering. I hope that's not at my end because my internet's been really weird this morning. So it could well be. Hopefully it's not my end, because then that means everyone's got to deal with me. It's buffering. Oh, crap. I think it's my internet right now. I will keep trying, but if it doesn't come right, I've been having a lot of crappy trouble with my internet in the last 24 hours. So if it kind of falls apart, then, well, I'll address it if it happens. It was definitely my end. Yeah, oh, crapola. I've been dropping in and out of the internet, having just crazy, crappy, annoying stuff for the last, I don't know, not quite 24 hours, but it was happening again yesterday when I was trying to do stuff. So I apologize for that. So this Danielle, whatever, is not a good leader then, presumably. actually I know nothing about politics in Alberta, so something I'm suddenly learning about. But it seems to be the same old story that if there's funding cuts to be made, let's cut it to the people who need it the most. Danielle Smith is Alberta's Premier. Yeah. Well, she's got a lot to answer to right now. Yeah, Teresa, the culvert was open. The culvert was not blocked off in any way. Failing after failing. So many things. And the fact that it took 48 hours. Oh, she's the Trump of Canada. Right. Well, she definitely needs to go. I hope you guys have got an election coming up. Or are you able to do what we do here in Australia, where the party just goes, yeah, you suck, and they vote out the leader? Our Victorian leader here, Jacinta Allen, just got basically ousted. I don't even know who our Premier is at the moment. But yeah, she just got ousted on the weekend. No, disabled people didn't even get paid for August yet. Wow. But now some did, but most haven't. First time ever in 26 years. That's wrong. That's so wrong. Sadly, Teresa, I wish I could argue and say it's not the case, but it really feels that way at the moment. You didn't think they could put grates on those culverts? I don't know what they look like. There would have to be some sort of way of putting some safety thing in place. How that works, I don't know. But you would think. Now, just while I'm talking, someone just reminded me that it is currently May, and hopefully I haven't lost you guys again. I'm just going into YouTube for half a moment, and I hope you might get some crazy, crappy sound. I have to go in. Whoops. Because I can. Done. Okay, I've just hopefully. Oh, it's buffering here on that too. Oh my gosh, Kelly got a membership. Yay. Okay, I'll close that again. Hopefully I haven't lost you guys. Am I still... Okay, hopefully you can still hear me. I just jumped into YouTube and gifted some memberships for people. Well, it's got to be possible to bolt like bars and stuff over the culverts, surely. Look, let's ask Daniel. He would know how to do that. Kelly, I'm so thrilled that you got that. That's so cool. Been a long week for you, so certainly the universe has decided you needed something. So congratulations on that. There's got to be something. There's got to be some fix in terms of the culverts, but something's got to change in terms of supports for families with children with disabilities. Something's got to change in terms of funding. We've banned plastics years ago. We have to remember our shopping bags when we go to the supermarket because you can't get plastic shopping bags. we have paper straws, which I hate because they never last the full drink. Restaurants can't give out plastic straws or plastic cutlery or anything like that anymore. And like plastic bags have been out for probably 7 or 8 years here in Victoria and longer in other states. It's a start. Okay, so because Belinda is just becoming so frustrated by a lot of the crap in this case, and I can't blame her, I'm going to read this one. Apparently, the mother of my grandchildren has come out 15 months after having a meeting. Oh, okay, I'll pause. I'll reread that. Okay. Apparently, the mother of my grandchildren has come out after 15 months, full stop, or comma, after having a meeting with some of the smartest women in Nova Scotia to now clarify in her words about the pink blanket. This is what she felt needed to be cleared up. My question is why? The police have it, so why bring that up now? Great point, Belinda, because they've got it for forensics. Who cares? I'm not interested in the blanket as much as I'm interested in why this item and why now. I want to know where my grandchildren are. I want to know where, and I've skipped the rest, where Lily and Jack are. Belinda is so within her rights to be demanding this. It seems it's too long. Too many people are lying. And I'm with her. Like, why is it after 15 months, Malaya comes out with a apparently clarifying statement about the blanket, which is actually complete opposite of what is in the documents, complete opposite of anything that's been said in the past by her or Daniel. So which bit's the lie and why the need to change it? Let me see, what have we got here? Oh, yeah. It took several years for me to adjust to taking the bags shopping with me. I now have a shopping basket that I take if I go to Aldi. It's just the right size for like a bunch of groceries. And I usually have bags tucked in the zip part of that. But I've kind of reached a stage where I remember to take my bags all the time now. You use reusable bags to shop with. You have a vendetta against plastic and styrofoam. Nice work. They do. They kill marine life. That's all it is. It's just become a pissing match. Because Daniel and Malaya both gave different stories about where that strip of blanket was. And like, I don't see the point. It's just about trying to, it's the one-upmanship between Malaya and her crowd and Daniel. Yeah, good question. Who are the smartest women in Nova Scotia? I would like to know, because apparently they've come up with this comment about the blanket. I'm not sure if we were told more than that. But anyway. Yeah. The blanket is the only thing I get from looking at the blanket is it just demonstrates the extent of the lies in this case, because it is a classic example of how the lives have changed, how the story has been adapted based on what people are saying. I know. Sorry for the little snicker. You just suddenly made me think there's a song in that. There truly is a song in that, I swear. Sorry for that bip. I don't usually take screenshots while I'm live, but just the way you put it certainly makes for a future song. So I took a screenshot of your comment, Grover, and welcome in if I didn't get a chance to say that. And I need to put the comments back up. Yeah. They're losing the plot over the blanket. None of them can decide on what story. Oh, Karen, so good. Yeah, pink blanket blues. I've got to jot that down. You know this is going to happen. You guys make me do these things. Yep. Maybe these smart women can ask Malaya why she called her children in sick without checking on them. Maybe these smart women can ask Malaya if her children really were wearing the same clothes from Wednesday through to Friday morning. Maybe these smart women could just ask Malaya what happened to Lily and Jack and where they are. Now, I don't think Malaya knows exactly where they are, but I do believe she knows what happened to them. And maybe these smart women can ask Malaya what happened on Thursday night. Yeah. Now, the other thing that I'm stuck on is how they can claim that it was torn in the first place. Because thanks to Mike MX having found the exact blanket so that we know that it is Rochelle material. We know that it is actually quite a heavy weight material. And the way these Rochelle fabrics are made is not the same as like cottons and stuff like that, where the thread is going to run. They're like interlocking fibers. You cannot rip these Rochelle blankets. You have to cut them. You cannot rip them. So my question is, why are they claiming it was torn when it's impossible? The only way you could tear one of these Rochelle blankets is if it's been sitting outside for maybe 5 years in the sun. Maybe in Bendigo sun. I'm not sure how Nova Scotia sun would affect it. Welcome in, Denise. But it would need major exposure to the elements to start breaking down. And because it is an interwoven fibre, we're not talking about, just because you leave it in a window for 3 months. We're talking about it would need to be outdoors in the elements for many years before it's going to break down enough to the point where you could rip it. And even then, it will not rip in a straight line because it does not have the fibers in that way. When you rip cotton or something, the reason it rips in a straight line is because that's the way that the fibers run, the threads. Rochelle fibers do not have that. So you physically cannot rip them in a straight line. Yeah, I've been thinking about Maddie a lot lately. So when I was looking for an image to whack up on screen, I know I'm talking about Lily and Jack today, but I don't know, I've been thinking a lot about Maddie. And I will be doing my Maddie Monday again this week. I think I've finally figured out, maybe figured out how to get around the BS with YouTube demonetizing every time I do something on Maddie, touch wood. They took the full blanket that was in the garbage bag. I wouldn't be surprised if they also took the garbage bag. That was not mentioned. But you would think so. You would hope so anyway. Why? Yeah, exactly. Was it cut for a purpose? Because certainly that strip could have been used as a piece of rope, given the width of it. So what is the real story? I know a lot of people still believe it was planted. I don't believe it was planted. I believe that one of the vehicles that was going back and forth on that in the early hours of Friday morning was a truck, like a ute. And I do believe that strip of blanket was on the back of a truck and blew off. If it's on the side, like if it's right on the side of the tray, it just has to blow off at the right time, hit the slipstream. Sooner or later, it's going to come out of that slipstream and it is going to go somewhere. The location in that tree, to me, fits in with a vehicle heading back down the road and the piece of blanket flying off and ending up in the tree. And I know a lot of people disagree with that. Mike MX did a video where he believes he showed that couldn't be the case. I disagree. I think Mike MX has a genius mind, but to me, I can visualize it. I can see it. I suspect it was cut to be used for something. I suspect that one of the things they would have discovered when they did the forensics on it, they would have been able to tell, from there'll be little shards of fibers. You don't need wind So this is the thing. You don't need wind. There is going to be, first of all, you get the whole inertia thing, but you also get a wind tunnel from a vehicle that is moving. So it could be completely still. You're still going to get some movement of the air. Because when something is moving, the air flows around that object. So if you look at videos of wind tunnel testing on vehicles, where they look at the wind resistance and stuff like that, you can see how different things affect the way the wind flows over and around the vehicles. There's always going to be that airflow. Spot on. Just, go in a convertible and see what happens to your hair. My brother rides he's got a Harley, and he's got one of those heated jackets that you press the button on and it heats up, because when he's out on the freeway, just the air coming onto him, the cold air, hits him. It could be soggy, but remember, according to Brad, the last vehicle he heard wasn't the loud vehicle, which places the last vehicle being out and about around 5 a.m. because Brad said that this was all between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m. So it's quite possible that it wasn't raining at the time. It's quite possible the blanket wasn't soggy. We don't even know. Nothing's been said about whether or not the blanket was soggy, because all we know is that it was in the tree. Oh yeah, I could imagine. I could imagine. I used to have to leave home really, really early for work. And there were times when some places where I was working, it was like an hour and a quarter drive or something like that. And quite often I would just have a banana for breakfast. And, biodegradable. I'd wind down the window when I was done and fling the skin out the window. That gives you a pretty good example too of, the airflow and stuff like that. Oh yeah. Because my brother's down in Melbourne, it's like a 2-hour ride to get up here. So he's always doing that whole defrosting thing when he gets inside. So the heating jacket is definitely a good investment. I'm glad he got himself one. No, we're not speculating that it came from a convertible, but if it was on the back of a back of a ute, back of a truck, the wind's still gonna flick that out. Oh, good to see you in here, Charlotte. Yep, it blew there from all the way over at where was it she used to be? Anyway, yeah, Anita did it. She was driving 140 kilometers down the road, and it blew through out the window of her BMW. That's for sure. I like that. Brilliant. Yeah, look, we could debate the blanket forever. there's merit in both arguments. I just got to jot that down. You know, when you get me going making these songs, that it distracts me from doing proper work. I mean, yesterday I was working on clips for the new Daniel song, working on animation and stuff like that. And the plan was that I was going to do that for a few hours and then get in and do some serious work. And then I got a visitor, so I ended up not getting any other videos done last night because I spent so much time playing around for the latest Daniel song. And you know that there's going to be a song about this blanket next. You can guarantee it. Oh yeah, the squirrels were... Best squirrel excuse for me is anything that involves any sort of animation, any sort of, creative digital stuff. You can guarantee. That wouldn't be hard to do because I've already got the animations saved of her driving down the road as it is. So all I would have to do would be to add that into that animation. Oh dear. There's another song I've been working on, but I'm not sure if it's... I'm still not sure if it's... I should make a squirrel song, that's for sure. I was considering making a song for Amira and Mouse, given that they seem to feature quite often in my live streams. But I'm not 100% sure if I should maybe do that. The piece of blanket in the garbage bag could have been put... I actually do believe that the piece of blanket was put there after the piece was found in the tree. I think just the way Daniel was like, no, it's not their blanket. I don't recognize that. Malaya never says, neither of them actually say when they're shown the piece of blanket that the larger piece was thrown out. All they say when they are shown that piece of that strip of blanket is that that had been on the larger piece, which had been used on a door or a window or take your pick, and that piece had been torn off. You get different versions in terms of when that piece was torn off. And all they said was that strip was thrown out. They never said that the larger piece was thrown out. So I think someone's had a panic after that strip of blanket has been found and decided they needed to throw away the larger piece. Because the other thing that people seem to have missed when Daniel's talking about it, I'd bring it up if I thought I could get it really quickly. When Daniel's talking about it, and he's talking about it being double bagged, if you listen very carefully, what he's actually saying is that all the garbage itself was in one bag. The blanket was in the outside bag, separate from the garbage. It's something that took me a long time to pick up that that's what he was saying. he basically describes it as being double bagged with the blanket in the outside bag and essentially the rubbish on the inside bag. Which to me says it was garbage collection the following day. The Tuesday. So they collected that piece of blanket on the Monday evening. The Tuesday was garbage collection day. So that to me says, because it was in the evening when the RCMP turned up and collected the piece of blanket, I wonder if maybe they had him under surveillance, because to me, it sounds like they've had that other piece of blanket stashed somewhere. They've done a panic after they've been asked about the strip. That piece of blanket's been put somewhere out of the way. And then Monday evening, knowing that the garbage was going to be collected the following day, the garbage has been pulled out from wherever it gets kept up until garbage day. And the blanket's been put in the bottom of a new bag and the garbage on top. That seems to me, that's what I think has happened. I could be wrong. But when you listen to the way he describes it, it was double bagged, but the garbage was only in one bag. Yeah, he did say his DNA would probably be found on the blanket. Yeah. So if anyone basically opened it up, they'd see the garbage because the blanket was between the two bags. Good point. Yeah. I wonder too, because there's nothing in the documents about how, this story of Daniel was like, piece of blanket, went and checked and discovered it in the garbage. And Justin filmed him as he's discovering it. And there's a hand-sized hole. The flaw in that story is that if he really came to that conclusion and filmed it, why was it Monday evening? To me, it does seem like basically the piece of blanket was, they were attempting to put it in the trash Monday evening when they put the garbage out, hoping it would have been collected the following day. Yeah, forensics have got both pieces of blankets and they've compared it. But if you notice, that video has never surfaced. DT said to him, can we see that video? And Daniel's like, well, Justin doesn't want to be involved. And DT said, well, he could give it to you and you could share it. And it doesn't need to involve Justin. And we've never seen it. That's the thing. I think the garbage would have been checked. When you consider that they got major crimes on day 2, when you hear Janie talking about them checking inside her washer spinner and Daniel saying they even looked inside the hamster cage, that bag of garbage would have been opened and checked. That's the other reason why I believe that it was put in at the last minute. Because, I mean, the garbage has got to be somewhere for the 2 weeks in between garbage collection. I would imagine that you don't tie the bag until just before you take it down to the bin. But you'd have to have it, like, you know, shut in a shed or somewhere where the bears aren't going to get to it. You certainly wouldn't be leaving the garbage in that manky old bin that would be easily openable. So I think, given how thoroughly the property was searched, then I believe the garbage was searched, which again makes me think that the blanket did not go into the garbage until Monday evening when the garbage was put out. Yeah, we got that story of he double bags it because you know, Danny says he overfills the bags and things like that. Big story around that. Big story around why he has to double bag it. Yeah. These are all things that the forensics will be able to tell. Daniel keeps claiming the blanket was at the bottom of the bag, which does sound to me like what he's done is he's put that strip of blanket in a bag and then he's put the bag of rubbish in on top, tied it all up, put it in the bin down on the road, ready for collection the following day. Unfortunately, it didn't work the way he wanted it to because the RCMP showed up at something like 8 o'clock at night and collected the piece of blanket. See, what they're going to look at in terms of the DNA, just going on from what BTTV said here, what forensics will have done with that strip of blanket and also with the larger piece of blanket is they will have looked at whose DNA was on there. The significant thing will be the absence of any external DNA. Any DNA that cannot be accounted for, which won't be there. We know it's just going to be people that were in the home. They're also going to be looking at the location of sources of DNA on that blanket. So, for example, if someone has been holding that blanket while they cut the strip, that's cool. It's good to see you in here anyway, BTTV. If someone is holding that, now if you're going to cut a strip of Rochelle fleece, like I said, it doesn't rip. So you have to cut all the way down. You can't just cut and rip. Meaning you are going to have to hold that piece of blanket, both parts of the blanket, as you cut. So they're going to be looking for DNA down the side where it's been cut to prove that it's been cut, for starters, given that both individuals claim that it was ripped. But they're also going to be looking for other sorts of DNA. So, for example, if that had been in contact with deceased remains. So I hate going down there because it's Lily and Jack. But if that piece of blanket had been somehow used to move one of the children, then there will be body fluids regardless. There will be cells that will be different from the cells that would come off the skin of a living person. This is not an avenue I like going down too often, but I think if I can just word it the right way, you can bet. Now, the blanket is in the forensic lab, which is the big forensic lab, so it's not in Nova Scotia. But you can bet that they would have most likely run it over with the cadaver dogs. Yeah, mitochondrial DNA is also going to play a big part in this. And here's the thing. In terms of any evidence that might be found at a later date, mitochondrial DNA doesn't break down as easily as the regular non-mitochondrial DNA, which is something Malaya might want to consider. It's her genetics that could be significant in this case. So for anyone who doesn't know, mitochondrial DNA is the DNA that is passed down through the female line. So for me, that means that my mother has passed down DNA from her and from my grandmother. So my cousin and I, my female cousin, because my mum and her mother were sisters, we would have very similar mitochondrial DNA. And this is part of how they're catching criminals at the moment. Because mitochondrial DNA is unique. It has to be passed down from mother to child. Now, my brothers would have also got the mitochondrial DNA, but they wouldn't pass it on to their children because they're not mothers, obviously. And it is significant because it takes longer for mitochondrial DNA to break down. There's also, it seems to be held in more places where regular DNA isn't held. Correct me if I'm wrong, and the way things progress so quickly, it used to be that I think hair and teeth were a really good source for mitochondrial DNA, and you could get a complete profile, and you'd be more likely to get a good source of mitochondrial DNA from hair and teeth than of any other DNA. Correct me if I'm wrong, because it's so long since I've been reading up on all this. Yep. I actually find it fascinating when you consider that whole link that exists between mothers and their children, that, the maternal instinct, they call it. But the truth is mitochondrial DNA is stronger DNA than any other DNA. So it can last on surfaces for a really long time. It just depends on the environmental conditions. There are, girl power, exactly. And thanks for the Jules Carey Fawcett. There are cases where the only DNA they've been able to extract because of, time factors and stuff like that, there are cases where it's been the mitochondrial DNA that's basically solved the case, because that's pretty much all that was left. Yeah, so Daniel's mitochondrial DNA would be from Janie. And you can trace back the female line in Daniel's family essentially in that mitochondrial DNA. Yep, right there. Mitochondrial DNA for, like, a lot of this really old stuff that they're now discovering, like that the first humanoids came out of Africa, and this is from mitochondrial DNA. I know people think that the two pieces of blanket are probably insignificant. They're like, oh, they're just two pieces of blanket. But trust me. Cool. Thanks for that. The forensics that you can do these days on things like blankets can tell a huge story. Those blankets will have told forensics a lot. And, the fibers as well. I mean, that's old forensics. That's like, fiber stuff is old forensics. But there will be little shreds along the cut line, shreds of fiber along the cut line that will prove that it was cut, which, you can prove it's cut anyway. But the fact that there will be shreds of the blanket around where it was cut will be a big giveaway. But also in terms of, fibers and stuff like that, if that bit of blanket was on the back of a ute, back of a truck or something, there will also be like microscopic fibers that may well link it to a vehicle. That's the thing. Whatever that strip of blanket was used for, forensics know. Forensics will know exactly how that piece of blanket got in that tree. They will know exactly where that piece of blanket has been. And they will know exactly who's touched that piece of blanket. And here's the thing. Like I was saying about, because it has to have been cut. This microfiber Rochelle fabric stuff does not tear. So when they are looking for DNA on that strip of blanket, you can bet that they've sampled all along the edge where it was cut. And if there is consistent quantities of one person's DNA along that area, the cut line, that's not going to look good for them at all. Yeah. They will certainly be able to tell that, I would imagine. The amount of things they can do with forensics these days, I can't think of the lab, but there's a lady who's pretty much like the queen of forensics. You can lift, I kid you not, you can lift DNA off rocks now. That is how far along the technology has come. That is why we are just getting one case after another that's being solved. The only limitations are lab time, essentially. There are so many cases backed up waiting for additional forensic testing that, you know, there is just going to be a constant thing of cases being solved, cold cases being solved, because of how far along forensics have come. The story about the tub being filled up with water, I do strongly suspect that was an AI-generated thing. I have, from the get-go, I have saved every media story that was put out by the main media outlets. Also, you know, occasional ones like what's the one with the lighthouse on it, whatever that media outlet is. There's never been any mention of it that I have seen from any of the main media outlets. And like I said, I've collected, I have a folder on my Google Drive which has basically every media story that's been put out from May 2nd through up until the most recent one. So I think you're right, Charlotte. I think it was either started on Facebook or it was put out as an AI video. There's been a lot of fake articles that have been put out on Facebook as well, especially early on. In those early days, we saw a lot of fake articles being shared on Facebook. We saw a lot of AI crap being shared on Facebook. It's the amount of misinformation that was coming out from BS AI crap at the beginning is just insane. Yeah. See, those of you who were on Facebook quite a bit at the beginning seem to be the ones that remember this, which definitely leads towards it being completely bogus. Thanks for that, Kelly. I thought it had to have been an AI site. This is what people have been doing with cases. We're seeing it. Seems to be the thing now. As soon as there's a case, as soon as it hits Facebook, a lot of the time, suddenly there's AI BS coming out. Yeah, see, I don't remember. I remember hearing people talking about it, but I don't remember seeing anything about it. And I didn't really start paying attention to the Facebook groups for quite a ways in, because even though I started covering Lily and Jack's case from the get-go, at the time we were headed towards trial for Maddie. It was all that pre-trial stuff. There was just motion after motion being filed by Stephen Stern's defence team. So from the time Lily and Jack went missing to when Stephen Stern's basically made that plea, a lot of my focus was on looking at the new motions that were being filed, understanding the new motions that were being filed, and then creating videos for my viewers covering those motions. So when it came to Lily and Jack, my early focus was really only on what was coming out in the media, because they were kind of they were secondary to Maddie, because I'd been covering Maddie's case since before she was found, and I was fully invested in following her case through to justice. So to me, that says that it's got to have been something that was created and shared on Facebook, as in it's got to have been something fake, because I don't recall coming across it. And like I said, I was following all the media. Anytime I come into a new case like this, if I'm invested in the case like I was with Lily and Jack and like I was with Maddie, I will bring up every single bit of media for that case that comes up, and I will go through that. So it's got to have been AI. Yeah, if you're on water restrictions, if you're in a regional area, it's not uncommon to go and do laundry elsewhere, because doing laundry takes a lot of water. But from our conversation yesterday, the question is, did they really do laundry at Paddy's? They certainly didn't do 6 loads. And also, when did Daniel break Janie's washer spinner? So there's definitely questions there to be answered about the laundry, that's for sure. Yeah, they had to get bottled water for drinking because of the water issue. I know of a lot of country people who will collect the water, like if they are doing their laundry at home, they collect the rinse cycle and use that to start the next load washing. Oh, so Cheryl said the blanket is insignificant. Wow. Well, if we've got Cheryl saying the blanket is insignificant, and we've got Malaya saying this is the new story, to me that says the blanket is significant, because both sides are bending over backwards to control the narrative when it comes to this blanket. That's what I would really like to know. Like, when exactly did your washer spinner get broken, Janie? And how did Daniel break it? What was he washing in there that broke it? Yeah, it's definitely a huge red flag because Cheryl does cover for Malaya. That to me says that the blanket is definitely significant. Yeah, so true. And the truth will come out. It doesn't matter how many different narratives they come up with. It doesn't matter what they convince the public of. It actually doesn't matter what we think. Because at the end of the day, RCMP aren't going to be prosecuting this case on he said, she said. They're going to be prosecuting the case on facts, on forensics, on digital technology. Not just that, it's not just about that they wouldn't be going to the effort and expense of the forensics on the blanket, but the last statement we had with regards to the blanket is that the blanket is still at the forensic lab. That's very, very significant because usually in a case, items will be sent for forensics. Now, yes, if it is biological samples, they will remain at the lab. Welcome in, Bonza. You're right. I was late as well. Anyway, labs aren't there for evidence storage. So Cheryl's statements on the blanket were on Justin's live last night. I'll have to go through and check that out. I didn't get much of a chance. That's Belinda's live, yeah. I still haven't had a chance to look at that, so I will definitely go in. Did Justin highlight those, or do I need to go through and look at the chat as well? I would imagine Justin would have responded. Anyway, in terms of the blanket, forensics labs don't just keep everything there. They don't do evidence storage. So if that blanket had been tested and there was nothing overly significant found, it would have been returned to the RCMP and entered into evidence, and it would be currently sitting in a storage locker somewhere, like an evidence storage locker. So the fact that the blanket has been retained at the forensics lab, the pieces of blanket are retained and are at the forensics lab, that says that they are significant. There is a reason for keeping those pieces of blanket at the forensics labs. When you consider all the cases that are investigated, when you consider the amount of items that go through a forensic lab, they do not store evidence. The only time things are stored at forensic labs is if there is the possibility that those items will need additional testing. So no matter what stories these people put out there, the fact that it is still at the forensics lab shows that there is something significant in terms of this blanket. Yep, exactly. They may still be doing additional testing. They may be waiting on other samples. They may have some sort of significant sample that they want to be able to match to a additional piece of evidence if that comes up. Basically, the pieces of blanket being at the forensic lab still means they're not done with that piece of blanket. If that piece of blanket was insignificant, they'd be done with it and it wouldn't be at the lab. Yeah, there's some sort of new story. Malaya came out and gave a different version of how the blanket was used or something like that. I haven't had a chance to dig into that yet. And then Cheryl was in Justin's live yesterday, apparently also trying to steer the narrative. So I will certainly be looking into that today. I think I am taking a bit of time off this afternoon, going to head over to my sister's and watch the new Netflix thing on the Idaho murders, which means that I could well be just doing a kind of a reaction video tonight to that, depending on what it's like. But I certainly am going to be focusing in on the new narrative for the blanket over the next couple of days. That's for sure. The fact that, like Belinda says, we've had nothing from Malaya for 15 months, and she comes out to talk about the blanket. Like, why? Make that make sense? Okay. An hour and a half and I haven't done any of the Daniel audio, but I'll tell you what, we've had some really good discussions already. I think, welcome in, Ariel, good to see you here. I do think that the blanket is super, super significant. Bingo. Oh, yeah, yeah. I would love to know what sort of DNA profiles they have got off that blanket, because I think that blanket has got a lot of stories to tell. Oh, I haven't had a chance to look into it yet. But yeah, it is from Shenanigans. It is after apparently the smartest women in Nova Scotia all got together and had a chat. And then we get this new story about the blanket. But I'm not sure exactly what the full story is. I've only had it reported to me yet. I haven't had a chance to actually check for myself. Possibly, but I think its main significance is going to be with Jack and Lilly. Oh yeah, yeah. I agree. Malaya does can create confusion. See, the thing is, what you've got is, on one side, you've got Daniel who just speaks without thinking. He creates the narrative as he goes along. But it seems like on Malaya's side, we get the silence. And then clearly they figure it out in the background. They decide what the narrative is that they want to put out. And then they put it out. So it's a more calculated way of trying to control the narrative. Night, BTTV, I hope you get some rest. So I don't actually believe Cheryl's story about the piece of blanket being on the railing. There's no evidence of that. And it's something that seems to have only come originally from Cheryl. And how is it? Malaya claims, I think the latest claim is that it had been thrown out for ages and it had been sitting on the railing for ages. A strip of blanket sitting on a railing. How long is that going to stay there? Not long. You just get one bit of weather and that piece of blanket is going to be in the garbage, in the garden or in the yard with the rest of the rubbish. So if it had been put over the railing and left there, it would probably be like, lying down in the marsh by now or something like that, in my opinion. I have no doubt they probably have got a lot of body cam footage. So they would have gone in, because I think, like I said, I haven't had a chance to dig into this properly yet, but I think Malay is trying to claim that it was... Either way, they will have body cam footage from day one, which will be able to show the locations where they're claiming that the piece of blanket was. And I'm pretty certain the body cam footage will show that it wasn't where they're claiming. Yeah, I think it's all about... We're just about to see a lot of mudslinging, I think. I think things are starting to get real for them. I think that they are starting to realise that there's going to be arrests, that there's going to be a resolution for this case. So they're going to just keep slinging mud at each other. Now, unfortunately for Malaya, her pet YouTuber has quit YouTube, or at least for now. So now she needs Cheryl to go into live streams and push the narrative that way. Yep, where are the receipts, Malaya? Let's see it. Because, I mean, the fact that the story she's come out with contradicts the story that she gave RCMP. Sorry, I really had to yawn just then. She's come out 15 months later with a story that is a direct contradiction to what was told to RCMP. Suddenly she's pushing the narrative of the piece of blanket being over the railing. Again, like Belinda said, why is she coming out over this piece of blanket as opposed to coming out over her children? Justin did... Belinda was up on Justin's live stream yesterday. So Justin and Belinda were having a conversation about the case. And it sounds like Cheryl must have been in chat. I popped in for a while after I finished my live stream yesterday. I didn't see Cheryl in chat. But it sounds like she was there for at least some of it. Yes. Logan definitely won that one with the Logan versus Cheryl showdown. Cheryl definitely backed down very quickly and went quiet very quickly. Oh, exactly. If the blanket was on the railing, it would have been collected day one. The fact that it was a chat from the foggy woman. Yeah. The fact that they did not get that piece of blanket till Monday night definitely says to me that it was not on the railing. Or are they trying to say the stripper blanket was on the railing? I think this is them trying to push the narrative again that someone planted the stripper blanket, that it was taken off the railing and planted. Which again, to me, the fact that both sides are bending over backwards to control the narrative over this strip of blanket, that says to me that it was not planted. That says to me that it is really significant and that they're freaking out over what story that piece of blanket has to tell. Good question. There's so many people out there with sock accounts. I can't keep up. It's yeah, I think that's part of the problem. Our brains aren't melted on math. So for us trying to find logic in something that's not logical, that's probably a large part of the problem. That's what I believe. And I suspect that's probably the reason he was out again when Malaya rang the RCMP. Maybe they came to the realization of, we've lost this strip of blanket. You need to go find it, Daniel. Good question. That's a really good question. That would depend. I guess if they're somewhere on scene, then probably. Because when you look at the Maddie Soto case, when Stefan snuck back down to his parents' place the night before he was arrested, the reason they found that out was because there'd been a car accident on a sort of intersection on the approach to his parents' house. And they had caught Jen's vehicle on dash cam, police dash cam. So, and that was a case where that was, something they were actively working at the time. So I guess if they're on location, they might leave them on. Yeah. Janie calls it a mistake that Malaya rang 911. There's also, I've shown you in a video where one of the times when Daniel shows serious contempt when he's talking about something is when he talks about Malaya calling 911. And I've shown that in a video where you can see it in his facial gestures and stuff like that. So Daniel and Janie were both pissed with Malaya about calling 911. And I do think that she broke protocol. She went off script. And it could well be related to the blanket thing. Yeah, and that's why Daniel ended up at the marsh, in my opinion. Daniel was still working on the cover-up. And Malaya took it on herself to call 911 before he got back. And he got back and he freaked because the cops were there. So he parked on at the marsh, tried to head off into the woods to be absent, and got spotted. I think he got spotted because the only way he could have been spotted, I've shown you the different views. The only way he could have been spotted was if he was about to turn into that driveway on Gerlock Road, spotted the RCMP vehicles, and kept going to the marsh. And they were like, okay, someone needs to go and get him. Yeah, I think so. Because she sounds really apologetic. It's like she has to explain why she called 911 at that moment. Because I just had the instinct to call. That's someone offering an apology, offering an explanation of why they did it at that time, like they weren't supposed to. It really does seem like Malaya kind of went off script and she messed with the plans when she rang 911. And I do believe that Daniel didn't know that she had tried to call Cindy at 8:28. Well, that's the thing. I think Daniel was out. I suspect, I wouldn't be surprised if when you hear his route that he took, I wouldn't be surprised if he was retracing the route that had been taken the night before, trying to figure out where this strip of blanket had ended up. Yeah, they're so very negative about Malaya calling 911. It was a mistake, according to Janie. And Daniel, you get the look on his face of utter contempt when he's talking about Malaya calling 911. Well, we don't know if they were planning on waiting to call. We don't know if the original plan was to call 911 when they did. But it does seem that Daniel was up all night working on, getting rid of evidence and removing Lily and Jack from the property, in my opinion. I think the plan was to make sure everything was done properly before reporting the children missing. So we don't even know if that's when the plan was for calling. I think, like I said, I think Malaya broke ranks and she screwed it all up for them. Yeah. Malaya's biggest mistake in all this was calling 911. Admittedly, this is when she's trying to push the whole narrative of Malaya had someone pick up the kids. But why would Janie give a toss about that being Malaya's biggest mistake if it meant that it clears Janie and Daniel? For her, it's something you can tell. She's so negative towards, they're both so negative towards Malaya and so negative about her calling 911. Yeah, well, he claims that they've spotted him, doesn't he? When you listen to one of his descriptions of heading back to Gairloch Road, it does sound like he was coming from the other direction of the marsh. So from up towards Legg Road, he was coming back from that direction, which to me suggests that he was coming back from that direction. He saw the RCMP vehicles and he kept going and pulled into the marsh. They were probably talking to Malaya and were asking where Daniel was. Malaya probably saw the vehicle and went, well, that's him in my car now. And then he kept going. Because they had to have, Malaya had to have identified the vehicle and him to the RCMP for them to actually go, hang on, we need to get him over from the marsh. Let me have a look. Yeah, I think so. I still wonder how this case might have gone had she managed to get through to Cindy at 8:28 in the morning. Is it a case of they had come up with a plan? Malaya maybe at 8:28, when she talks about hearing Lily at 8:20, and she talks about getting the baby and taking the baby back to bed and putting the television on, is it possible that she actually did get up at 8:20, turned the television on because she was going to try and call Cindy, and she was going to try and call Cindy from another room and didn't want Daniel to hear? Because she makes a point of talking about the television being on. And even Daniel mentions that he woke up at one point and the television was on. Like, now, you do that with little kids. If it helps, if a bit of background noise helps them sleep, you do that. But it makes me wonder if her talking about 8:20 was her getting up at 8:20, collecting the baby to change a nappy, or just collecting her because she was awake and not wanting her to wake Daniel, turning the television on and trying to ring Cindy then. They certainly were. Sounds like Daniel was, I honestly think he must have been tripping for several days. He has no idea between Wednesday and Thursday. He's just got a very vague explanation of Friday morning, which keeps changing. I think he was tripping for many, many days. I think he was out of it in the lead up to when they went missing and after they went missing, in my opinion. Oh yeah, that rabbit hole just gets deeper and deeper, doesn't it? It does seem like, to me, that when we found out about that 8:28 phone call, to me that really shone a different light on things. I think when you look at how manipulative Daniel is, And the thing is, I know there are people who disagree with me, but from what I see, Malaya is manipulative in her own way. So I think that Daniel was out again. Janie was in her RV, or possibly had actually gone out doing stuff with Ron. You know, maybe she was out working on the cover-up as well. And I do think that 828 was Malaya being unsupervised, attempting to contact her mother. Yeah, Grover's thinking the same thing. The likelihood that she was unsupervised, she thought she was going to get a jump on this. And she screwed it up for them. I think the narrative that Durwood gives has come from Janie, but he wasn't meant to say it. When he talks about Janie catching Malaya out on the driveway and saying, "What did you do?" And he's pushing that narrative in terms of Malaya putting the kids in a vehicle and having someone take the vehicle away. But if it's in the perspective of Janie catching Malaya on the phone while Daniel's out still working on the cover-up, then that puts it in a completely different light. Okay, just missing a lot of comments. There's a lot of really good things being said here. I agree. I think when you look at Daniel's wedding photos, I mean, Janie looks like a completely different person in those wedding photos too. That was like, you know, the picture perfect marriage, the picture perfect family. And it fell apart. Now, Malaya didn't come onto the scene until after that had all fallen apart. But it does seem like Malaya, like Janie blames her. Janie probably would not accept anyone because it's not the perfect marriage that maybe she was hoping that Daniel might have had. Yes. Thursday was just another tweaking day. It definitely seems that way. It really does. When you look at the way or the lack of information from Daniel from Wednesday on, he was definitely 3 or 4 days he was tweaking. That is probably why when they went to Paddy's, he stayed in the vehicle. He was probably too paranoid to go into Paddy's. And maybe that's why after the polygraph exam, he was happy to go in there, but he didn't go in there when they went there before Lily and Jack went. Because when he did the polygraph exam, obviously he wouldn't have been tweaking. Wow. I watched a video the other day and I thought I'd saved it, but I didn't. I think I was going to go back and save it. This was somewhere in Australia and someone was just so... They were doing the mathematical thing. And they were driving this SUV in the traffic. And just the insanity of the way they were driving. It ended up with one of the tires shredded. And they ended up driving down onto a beach and trying to escape by running into the water. But the risks they were taking with this vehicle I was looking at the video and thinking this is just insane. Yeah, true. I just called 911. That's the end of the story. Yeah. I also think that by the time people started coming to the property, she'd also had a bit of, she'd gone past the initial shock, the initial distress, and gone into that zombie mode. Now, Belinda talks about her being like she was in shock. To me, that suggests that it was that point of those first couple of days where you're just in a haze. So I think I'm not prepared to say that Malaya wasn't doing rugs. Yes, we know at the very least that she's no stranger to prescription drugs. I don't think Malaya is as innocent when it comes to the use of drugs as what we're supposed to believe. Yeah, well, that's the other thing too. And I think that's the only explanation I can give for 15 months of Malaya doing nothing, saying nothing, is that she's actually locked away that part of her memory that deals with what happened to Lily and Jack. That's locked up tight so that she can give the impression to the people around her that she knows nothing. But you can't lock that sort of thing up forever. Let me have a look. Loving the conversation today. We've got nowhere. We haven't even looked at Daniel, but the conversation that's going on is brilliant. Yeah, exactly. Malaya's presence meant that there was no chance of any sort of restitution. No, restitution is not the right word. But yeah, there's no chance of Daniel and his wife getting back together. For Janie, that was like the proving that Daniel's marriage was over. And you can see why she would resent Malaya for that. Sounds that way, yeah. Wow, yeah. When people are coming down from a bit of a trip, they can definitely get violent. Exactly. I'm with you. I believe whatever happened to Lily and Jack happened at the hands of Daniel. I believe that Malaya was part of the cover-up. She made that choice. Now, clearly she had made a choice at 8:28 in the morning to ring her mother, and that could have been something that was going to take this case in a different direction. But even after that, even after she left with Cindy, she made the choice to still cover up what happened to her children as opposed to doing the right thing, in my opinion. Okay, what am I seeing here? Saw a really good comment and it's gone. Sorry, I'm looking for, there was a, I've lost it. There was, oh wow, I didn't see that either. Wow, somebody was having a bit of a mathematical dance by the sounds of it. How scary. The house across the street was broken into last week. You checked your camera that night and there was a guy with gloves doing ballerina spins on the front steps of your house. Wow. That's so frightening. People who are on rugs, they don't know what they're doing a lot of the time. They just go completely out of control. Yeah. I believe that had she communicated with RCMP and given them details about what happened to Lily and Jack, that we wouldn't still be here 15 months down the track. When you look at Harmony Montgomery's case, the reason that they were able to nail Adam Montgomery so quickly was because his partner spoke, and I can't think of her name right now. She basically squealed on him. If you have someone who's willing to squeal, that speeds the case up a lot. So that to me suggests that she hasn't been communicating with the RCMP, or if she has, it's not been a truthful narrative. Sadly, it does feel that way. You have them talking about, oh, this was a bad choice again with this guy that she ended up with and broke up with and everything. Malaya seems to have this desperate need to have someone by her side. She needs someone there to make her feel like she's she's got someone to lean on. She's not someone who's capable of being independent. She needs that emotional connection. The lack of emotional maturity. I explained this the other day, but my brain's just kind of turning to mush at the moment, so it's not doing it. The words just aren't happening, are they? It's not a healthy mindset, and it's something that she's got herself caught into, I believe. That lack of attention, lack of validation, and it's something that she has to have. Yeah, I'm not even going to try with that anymore because my brain's just not giving up. Let me see. I agree. We're not going to see movement in Jack and Lily's case now for quite some time, I believe. The delay with Daniel's current case, I think, is going to slow down Jack and Lily's case. I had originally believed that we might have seen resolution this year, but I honestly don't believe that we're going to see any resolution in 2026. It's heartbreaking, and I hope I'm wrong. But the delays with Daniel's case, I think, are going to slow things down in terms of justice for Lily and Jack. Yeah, they need it. Yeah, that's what it is. She doesn't know how to function as an individual, but she also needs a significant connection. It's that need for someone to take care of her, to take on a role that was never achieved for her when she was young, in my opinion. And I think that's the thing. I think that there are childhood issues here in terms of her not being given the valid interpersonal connections that she needed as a child. So now she's desperately trying to make them by going from one partner to the next. It's trying to fix things from childhood, essentially. Yeah. Jordan, I swear, he's got to know something. And I think, given the charges they piled up on him, I do think that that's the goal. Well, yeah, that's the truth. This delay was because of additional evidence. So, as frustrating as it is, I'm happy to wait. But I just wish things were just happening faster. There's no such thing as coincidence when it comes to these sort of things. Chance and Jordan are on massive, massive charges. You're so right, Bonza. Both of them could be facing jail time. If they get convictions, they're gonna get jail time. Seems like a hell of a coincidence that you've got both of them in the courts at the moment on these major charges. Possible, yeah. And that's the thing. I'm wondering if this additional evidence comes from someone else coming forward. Yep. This case truly is emotionally draining. covering Maddie's case took a lot out of me. But Lily and Jack's case is something entirely different. And I won't stop covering their case until we see justice. And I won't stop talking about them until they're found. But it's got to have been one of the most challenging cases to cover emotionally. It exhausts you. And then you've got all the BS in the background that just makes it even worse. It's unreal. I think in terms of what you're saying there, major crimes will go for the extreme penalty. I would like to hope that they are going to throw as many charges into this case as possible. Obviously, what charges actually they can use is going to come down to the public prosecutor, or whatever prosecutor they're using. All that side of it will be decided once it hits the courtroom. But I do hope that part of the delay is that they are hoping to bring multiple charges. Because quite often you will see that with cases, they'll bring multiple charges and then absorb a number of the charges when it actually reaches sentencing. Because it's not uncommon to see a jury go with one charge and not with another. Hopefully that's what we're looking at in terms of one of the reasons for the delays. Touch wood. Anyway, I need to wrap this up. We've been on here for 2 hours. I haven't played any of Daniel's audio, which is not a problem. That's still there for tomorrow's live stream. And yeah, I did have to have Maddie up on the screen again today because she's been in my thoughts a lot lately. I haven't looked at the timeline, but we must have hit about the 12-month mark since that mongrel was allowed to plead no contest. But yeah, they're all in my thoughts all the time. Thanks for coming in, people. This has been I really enjoyed this chat. I know maybe some people get frustrated when I don't get to the point, but I think these chats are the most valuable ones. Did Daniel get bail or an order to show up? He's on bail, essentially. He's not, just regular bail. The last appearance, he didn't have to appear. His lawyer appeared on his behalf, basically, and just asked for an extension and got the extension till September 3rd. So we're getting closer. We're just short of a month away. It seemed like a long way away before, but September 3rd is just a bit over a month away now. Yeah, 23rd July sounds about right in terms of when the last one was. Yeah, I like tangents too. I really like when we get on to nutting these things out because it helps me think things through more as well when I've got you guys in here sharing your thoughts and opinions. It just helps to clarify a lot of things. I think it helps us all to gain a better understanding of the case. So there's certainly nothing wrong with these sort of conversations that are just your going off at tangents without any solid media to base it on. Okay, time to wrap it up there. So thank you so much for coming in. Please hit the like button on your way out. That's always very much appreciated. If you're new, please subscribe, and please do leave a comment below. If you're on replay, please definitely leave a comment. If you're here in the live stream, please consider coming back in and leaving a comment, or even if you're behind us and we finished, please do consider leaving a comment as well. It certainly helps get these out there in the algorithm. So on that note, thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.